Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pickdawgz, and welcome back to the NFL edition of Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the Week 12 games for Sunday and Monday. If you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your football picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, the games I love the most in the NFL and other sports, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. There's also a link in the description. Alrighty, here we go. Here are the games for Week 12 in the NFL. First up, the Detroit Lions and the Indianapolis Colts. The Lions are a 7-point favorite on the road. Total is at 49.5 points. I got to mention, this is a tough Week 12 card, in my opinion, in the NFL. Just from a betting perspective, I think there's some good games on the board, but I'll probably be treading lightly. I just don't see a lot of great spots value-wise. But in this game, the Colts coming off the nice win against the Jets last week at MetLife. It was the first game back for Richardson as a starting quarterback. 28 points in that 1-point victory. But it's really tough to go against Detroit on the other side right now, even on the road, as a big road favorite because, they're on a roll right now. They're scoring a ton of points. This game, however, I do think will be a little bit more low scoring, and we see a very steep total. I do think there's some wiggle room there on the under. As strong as the Lions' offense has been this season, they are scoring 8 points per game less on the road than at home, and their defense has actually really improved the last couple of weeks, giving up just 248 yards and 170 yards in their last two matchups against the Texans and the Jaguars. And I think that the Colts, this is an offensive line that's had some issues recently, giving up 3+ sacks in 3 of the last 4 games. I think the Lions can get some pressure on Richardson. I don't think the Colts' run game does too much. Taylor struggled a little bit last week. I think we see a lower scoring game, so I'm going to lean towards the under in Lions-Colts. Next up, the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Chicago Bears. The Vikings are the favorite on the road by 3.5 points. Total right now is pretty low, 39.5 points. It makes sense with the Bears' current offensive struggles. Chicago, a really disappointing loss in that last game on the missed field goal at the end. But honestly, while the offense only put up 19 points, they still had 391 total yards. Definitely a big improvement from the previous weeks for Chicago. And, it's been a tough stretch right now for Chicago, the 4-game losing streak. But at the end of the day, they're still only one game out of a playoff spot in the NFC, so there's plenty to play for, a big divisional rivalry. I really wasn't that impressed with the Vikings last week in Tennessee. They won that game, they covered the spread, but they were honestly bailed out quite a few times with the big mistakes that the Titans made in terms of taking penalties on both sides of the ball. Will Levis had a few big plays taken back. I think a touchdown to Calvin Ridley called back on a penalty. It was really tough for Tennessee's offensive line. They made a lot of mistakes in that game, but really, the Vikings only had 318 total yards. They couldn't run the football. The offensive line had a little bit of issues there. And on the road, I just wouldn't want to be laying this many points in a divisional game against a Bears team. It still has plenty to play for. They showed those improvements last week in a game that they very well could have won, and they outgained the Packers. So give me Chicago in this one plus the points. I wouldn't be surprised to see them win the game outright. Next up, the New England Patriots taking on the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins are a big favorite at home in this one, and the total is at 46.5 points. This has been always a fun series to watch, and we've seen these season series get split quite often. Even when the Dolphins had some of their weaker teams against the Tom Brady-led Patriots, we saw some upset wins for Miami in those season series, but the Dolphins won that first game in Foxborough 15-10. That was without Tua, so it was a win and a cover because they were only laying, I think, 4.5 points. Now we see him as a much bigger favorite. I think Miami pulls off the season sweep this year, and I like their chances to win and cover the number. The Patriots have definitely shown a pulse offensively with Drake May at quarterback, and that's definitely the promising sign that you want to see if you're a Patriots fan. But the problem is this defense has actually not fared too well in recent weeks. We saw them give up 400 yards to the Rams in that last game, 28 points conceded as well. I think the Dolphins will have no problem moving the football in this game. And if it's a score-for-score game for a little while, I think at the end of it, the Patriots not going to have enough answers to cover the spread. So I'd lean towards the over, but I also like the Dolphins laying the points. Next up, the Tampa Bay Bucks taking on the New York Giants. The Bucks are a 6-point favorite. The total is at 41.5 points. It makes sense that the Giants wanted to move on from Daniel Jones with the team's struggles this year and his struggles offensively. But I was surprised to learn that Tommy DeVito is a starting quarterback over Drew Lock. It seemed like Lock was the QB2 for the entire season, and I think a lot of people expected him to get a shot at starting quarterback. But DeVito, he came in last year for a few games when Daniel Jones went down. He had his moments. The Giants won some of those games, but for me, I just don't think he's a starting quarterback in the league right now. And while I love backing backup quarterbacks, usually we can get great prices with those teams. This is not one of those situations, in my opinion. Both of these teams are on losing streaks, but the Bucks played a gauntlet of a schedule of taking on the Ravens, Falcons, the Chiefs, and Arrowhead, and then the Niners in those that 4-game losing streak. Now they play a much weaker team here. They're still definitely very much in the running in the NFC, both in the division and in the wild card race. And I think they pick up a key win in this one and cover the number on the road. Next up, the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Washington Commanders. The Commanders are a 10-point favorite. The total is at 45.5 points. There's not been too many instances where Washington's been favored in this series in general, let alone a favorite like this number at 10 points. I mean, the last time they were favored, it was 2020. They were a 1.5-point favorite, and it was a win 25-3 for Washington. The last time they were anywhere near a 10-point favorite was when they were a 9-point favorite against the Cowboys in 2007. They won that game and covered the spread as well, 27-6. I think they win this game and cover the spread as well, but I also like the over. Last couple of weeks for Washington, the offense has struggled quite a bit, less than 300 total yards in both of those games, but you have to look at who they played. The Steelers and the Eagles, two of the best defenses right now in the NFL, and in terms of the power rankings recently, both of those defenses have really stepped it up. So I think the Washington offense wakes up a little bit against a Cowboys defense that's struggling. And I also think the Cowboys, while they lost 34-10 last week against Houston, they put up just under 400 total yards in that game. CeeDee Lamb had a nice game. So I think the Cowboys can find a few scores in this game as well. Give me the over and the Commanders in this one. Next up, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Carolina Panthers. The Chiefs are a 10.5-point favorite. Total right now is at 42.5 points. For me, I just can't lay this many points with Kansas City right now. Situationally speaking, it's not the best spot. You got Carolina coming off the bye. They're coming off their two best performances of the season, arguably, back-to-back wins for the Panthers. While the Chiefs, they had their first loss of the year last week. They really did not play well offensively in that game, only 259 total yards. This Chiefs offense has not been anywhere near as potent as we've seen in recent years, and injuries play a role in that, but only 1 week the Chiefs have had this year that they've had more than 400 yards. So it's tough to, cover a spread like this unless you put up a big number offensively. Carolina's improved. I think the Chiefs definitely win this game, but they win it by well less than the spread. So give me the points with the Carolina Panthers at home. Next up, the Tennessee Titans and the Houston Texans. The Texans are a 7.5-point favorite. Total is at 40.5 points. This is another situation where I know the Titans have been dreadful against the spread this year, but I can't lay this many points with the Texans team that when you look at their home games, they played in a lot of close games this season. A 6-point win, 4-point win, 3-point win, 3-point win again, and then their last home game against the Lions, of course, they lost that one outright. So they've been winning a lot of their home games. They definitely played well there, but very close one-score margins. And this Texans offensive line, not really in the best shape for me to want to lay over a touchdown with it. I think the Titans last week, I don't want to say they got robbed. I don't want to, say, it was the Titans against the Vikings and the refs. But, man, I mean, the flags were definitely one-sided in that game. A couple of big plays called back for Will Levis in the offense. Definitely some mistakes made by the offensive line and inexperience for that offensive line. There's no doubting that. But I think the Titans maybe a little bit less unlucky this week and find a way to cover the spread on the road. Get a ton of value, in my opinion, with Tennessee. So give me the points with the Titans. Next up, the Denver Broncos and the Las Vegas Raiders. The Broncos are a 6-point favorite, total at 41.5 points. It's another situation where Denver's having a great season, 6-5 record, already over their season win total. They're definitely outdone their expectations, in great shape in the AFC playoff picture, and coming off a blowout win over the Falcons, 38-6. But I'm not ready to lay this many points with the Broncos team. It's still very inconsistent this season offensively and has a rookie quarterback. I don't love laying this many points with a rookie quarterback on the road. Like I said, Bo Nix has played well. I expect the Broncos to win this game, but the Raiders have done well in this series at home. The Broncos this is going to be their third road game in the last 4 weeks. So, I mean, that's not really an easy situation to be in. The Raiders, I thought, were competitive against the Dolphins. They weren't able to cover the spread, but their offense actually did quite well in that game, putting up 328 yards, 22 first downs. Big improvements from the previous weeks where they really didn't do much of anything. So give me the Raiders here plus the points, and the Broncos win by a field goal. Next up, we'll go to the NFC West as the Cardinals take on the Seahawks. We see the Cardinals as a 1-point favorite, but I actually see the Seahawks favorite at certain books, so definitely shop those numbers depending on which side you like, and the total is at 47.5 points. This is another really tough game, in my opinion, to handicap, and it makes sense that this is a pick 'em because there's definitely arguments to be made for both sides. The Seahawks coming off the big win against the Niners, definitely a letdown situation you want to worry about. But I mean, Seattle now right back in the mix here in the NFC. This you could consider a must-win game against a divisional rival. But Arizona on the other side, they are rolling 4-game win streak coming off the bye week. I think the situation definitely benefits Arizona a little bit more. For me, I'm going to lean towards the under. I think that the under's the play. The total's a little bit too steep. Seattle, their defense really showed up last week in San Francisco. Got some pressure on Brock Purdy. I think when you look at on the flip side, the Seahawks offense has given up 11 sacks combined in the last 2 games. That's a worry for me against a Cardinals pass rush that's really improved as the season's gone along. They've had 9 sacks in their last 2 games combined. So give me the under in Seattle, Arizona. Should be another great game. Next up, the Eagles and the Rams on Sunday Night Football. The Eagles are a 3-point favorite. Total is at 48.5 points. It's tough to go against either of these teams right now. The Eagles on a 6-game win streak and the Rams winners of 4 of their last 5. The Rams now right back in the mix. They're in a playoff spot right now in the NFC with a 5-5 record. And for me, I like the Rams plus the points. I just think when you look at this Eagles offense at home, it's been dominant. They put up 400-plus yards per game. But on the road, while the run game's been there, the offensive line has struggled quite a bit this season away from home, and they're only putting up 354 total yards per game in those road games. And the defense has been stellar. I expect a lower scoring game in this game as well with how well the Eagles defense has been in recent weeks. But I think the Rams make enough plays to keep this game close. I honestly think this game could finish, as a 3-point win either way. So you may be pushing this one, but I'm going to take the Rams plus the points. I think they are a live dog at home for this primetime matchup. And the final game we're going to talk about for the Week 12 card in the NFL is the Ravens and the Chargers. Ravens a 3-point favorite on the road, total at 50.5 points. It's a situation where I think the Ravens are still one of the top 2 teams to beat, maybe top 3 now with Buffalo in the AFC. And if I'm going to get them at a cheap price like this because of their loss against the Steelers and the fact that the Chargers are on a 4-game win streak, just took down Cincinnati, I'm going to take it with Baltimore. I mean, the Ravens defense has definitely had its moments where they've struggled. They've given up 400-plus yards in a few games this season, but their offense has been outstanding. Yes, they had their weakest showing of the season last week against a divisional rival on the road, but the Steelers defense has been playing out, really well, in recent weeks. So I don't really put too much weight into that one performance. When you look on the other side, the Chargers just gave up 450 yards to the Bengals. So I think the Ravens have no problem moving the ball, especially on the ground in this game. The Chargers' run defense has not been great this season, giving up right around 5 yards per carry. So they look for Baltimore to move the ball consistently in this game. And you got to remember, that was a win for the Chargers against Cincinnati where the Bengals missed a couple of field goals. They had a few key mistakes that there was definitely a path for the Bengals to win that game outright. So you give credit to the Chargers for winning that game and on that 4-game win streak. But I think the Ravens are the much better team here, and we're getting them at a really good price. So give me Baltimore laying the points to end the week. And that's it. Those are the games for Week 12 of the NFL season. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Put those football picks in the comment section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Romanelli. Good luck.